was May of 2023. So in Q2 of 2023, we hit almost $70 million of revenue. Things were going strong. Now it turns out everyone was over inventoried. The industry went crazy, overbought. Our industry is pretty immature, if you ask me. Our industry has a long ways to go. And some of the selling practices and the installation practices need an upgrade. And that's why I go to work every day at 4 a.m. I'm 54 miles away. And so I do come to work every day, and I generally get up in the late 3s and I leave the house a little after 4 and I get to work by 5. Today, my first meeting was 5:30 in the morning.
My guest on today's podcast is the Chief Marketing Officer of a publicly traded company. Tigo specializes in optimizing the output, the amount of energy your solar will produce. They have optimizers for residential and commercial solar applications, actually even industrial. In simple terms, when your solar systems gets dirty or shaded, there's a shade on your system, the optimizer will help you still produce a significant amount of energy, giving you a greater return on investment. They're a lean company, less than 200 employees. What's really interesting about this company, they have a presence in over 100 countries, which is absolutely insane. Without any further ado, let's jump straight into the conversation with JD, the CMO at Tigo. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Quiet Work Podcast. Today, we are going to talk about how you can optimize your investment in solar or commercial solar, residential solar, how you can optimize your investment into renewable energy. Without any further ado, JD, please introduce yourself to the audience and tell us about the company you represent.
Sure. So I'm JD Dillon. I'm the Chief Marketing and Customer Experience Officer at Tigo Energy. We are relatively small in the industry. We went public in May of 2023, and we came to fame. Fame's a strong word. We first started with a product called an optimizer that basically works on safety and monitoring to lower costs, and then finally optimization, which helps with shade and similar type of issues to increase the output. And since then, after 8 years, we came out with a inverter and battery of our own as well. So we do inverter, battery, optimizer, and software.
And that's for residential and commercial, all of this that you've mentioned, all the equipment, hardware that you mentioned, or is it strictly for residential, most of it?
So the optimizer and fire safety products cover everything from very large utility all the way down to small residential. So they are ubiquitous. We sold last year, believe it or not, in 101 different countries. So that is around the world, every size, same exact product. It's ubiquitous. The inverter and battery we do in Europe and North America, just for residential.
Omnipresent in 101 countries. I don't even think I could name 101 countries. That's crazy. I'm glad that you track all of that, because that must be super interesting to see at the end of the year where all of your products are and where they're supporting the solar installations all across, I guess, all continents at this point, but maybe all continents.
I have to throw out my favorite install. Yes, we are in Antarctica.
There you go. I was curious to hear that, but I guess it's possible even there. So that's crazy. I was always asked here by a lot of homeowners that we helped transition to solar back in my days. How is it possible that you're a European company when there's no sun in most parts of Europe? How's solar working over there? And people are surprised, but well, that's going to give them something to research for sure. Fantastic. And how long have you been with the company, JD?
5.5 years.
5.5 years. What did you do before? How did you end up in the renewable energy space? And what's your story?
So I was with the Enphase, another company in the space, for 3.5 years before that. And the way I entered the renewable space, my background, well, I was in the Army, and then I was in semiconductors. And when I came to renewable energy, I didn't know anything about it. When I came to Enphase in July of 2017, it was to help turn around the company. The company had some business challenges. It was a great product that had some business challenges. And I was part of a turnaround team, for lack of a better term, to help turn the company around. And couldn't have cared less about solar. I actually just showed up. I was not A lot of people come into solar because they're really into green and they want to save the environment and they have a lot of altruistic desires. I did not. The only green I cared about was dollar bills. But in the process of being here, I have become a convert.
Mm. And I see the Calvary saber behind you. As always,
Yes.
that always looks great on your wall right there. Yeah, it's very interesting. And I guess I have wanted to ask you, how was the combination of your role between marketing and customer experience? That's very unique. We mostly see marketing and sales combined, or marketing alone, because that's a vast role. There's a lot in the company, especially a company that serves or sells products or is visible in 100 plus countries. That's insane. And not many companies can say that. So how did the combination come about? Was that your idea, or the other executive came up with this idea of combining customer experience with marketing? And how does it look like?
So at the company, I believe the most important part of marketing is the customer experience. And at our company, Tigo, we were a small upstart and we had a couple of challenges in the industry and we needed to work on both the reality and the perception of our image at the same time. And so we had to become easier to use and had to make sure that customers trained and understood our technology to ensure a high quality experience for the end user. So for us, the customer is the installer slash contractor, and we are simultaneously marketing to them and improving their experience at the same time. And I believe that's very important to marry those up together because you can't have one without the other in this particular case. And our industry is fairly unique. We don't really view the end customer as the customer. We view the installer because when an installer knocks on your door and comes to your door, they're the ones that often make the decision what equipment that is used. That may change over the next decade or two. But as of right now, when an installer shows up, if they say Solar Edge or Enphase or Tigo or GoodWe, as a homeowner, you don't know these generally. So you will trust the installer. Hence, we are marketing to the installer as a supplier.
That makes a lot of sense, and interesting that you've combined it that way. Because when I look at the last couple of years in the industry, and as we all know, there's a lot of companies that went out of business, a lot of installers, especially installers, that went out of business. When I look at that, and came across probably 50 plus companies across California and other states that we served back in the day. And those companies that were extremely focused on the customer experience actually are still in the business versus most other companies that were not so focused. And by that, I mean, they just had a lot of sales teams driven companies where you wanted to get those numbers. You wanted to make sure that you sell at the best higher price per watt and just pretty much move to the next project and next project. And a lot of times the salespeople had not even no idea about what they're actually selling, like what products, how the warranty actually works, and then what does it mean for the homeowner or business owner that invest so much money into it. And they thought it's pretty much hands off. You install it and you forget about the customer for the next 20, 25 years, unless they have a referral for you. So that's very interesting that you focus and you actually want to make that push towards educating customer, because solar, renewable energy in general, especially with batteries, things like optimizers, it's so complicated and convoluted for even a sophisticated business owner to understand how this all works. I love that.
Yes, our industry is pretty immature, if you ask me. Our industry has a long ways to go. And some of the selling practices and the installation practices need an upgrade. One of the areas that I try to push is something that we call total quality solar. And it's similar conceptually, so much so that the term comes from it, to total quality management, TQM. If you look back years ago, Deming and the quality movements on improving how all industries operate, particularly automobile industry, making quality at the center of everything, whether it's the person not overpromising at the kitchen table and the person who does the install ensuring it's a high quality. And I think our industry has a long ways to go there. And the companies need to have better quality. The suppliers, the manufacturers need to have better quality of products, and the installers need to have better quality of workmanship. And plenty do, but it only takes a few. to have that problem. One of the problems with our industry is if there is a single problem up on the news about a fire, the whole industry suffers. Everybody suffers. Not just that one company, the whole industry. And we need to take that to heart. Nobody
That's a big
cares. Nobody cares. Was it Tigo's fault or the installer's fault or anything like that? That doesn't matter. Someone says, "Oh, look at this. Solar is dangerous." Solar, as if the sun is dangerous. I mean, come on.
right. Voltaics, understand how that works.
Yes.
We once did donated a small system for the local zoo, because they have 500,000 to 1,000,000 visitors a year. And the purpose behind it was not really to supply much power, because it was tiny system, couple of kilowatts, but it was actually the educational process for the kids and the parents, how photovoltaics work. So we had a map of exactly every step that takes, and you would walk around the solar system, was a ground mount, and learn about it. So that's definitely important. I agree with you. When you see those news, when Fortune one, I guess you can say, not even 100, but one companies have huge issues with fires and roofs caving in and solar on top of it. That brings obviously a lot of question marks to the industry. And then, we have other acts of gods too, like the storms that recently, I don't know if you saw it, I think it was 250 megawatt system that got pretty much destroyed by super high winds.
Yep.
Was insane to see as well. And I all of a sudden see friends, like family members send those videos. That's always something that gets the news. And then the next time you think about solar, they're gonna bring that up, and that's very interesting. I'd be curious to hear how do you approach it? Do you do proactively some education, since you're the leader of the marketing company? So are you, how does education look in your case?
Nonstop education. I find it a little bit disappointing that our industry doesn't have a greater adherence to certification and technical certification and all of that. I'm torn because I'm at heart more of a libertarian. I'm not a big fan of the government sticking its nose in and trying to dictate things or any of that. But at the same time, we have to self-police a little bit within the industry and ensure that the high quality contractors are the ones on the roof, that the high quality suppliers is the equipment that the high quality installers are putting on the roof. And I think we need to move more towards that.
I like that, self-police. That's a good term right here. And I hope that that's going to be used more often in the near future, because as you've mentioned earlier, the market penetration in the United States compared to Australia, for example, is still tiny. There's still a lot room to improve, and I think that was my first impression when I moved actually to the United States to join a solar company, that the entire industry was like this gold rush, and everyone wanted to accomplish in 1 year what we should have been accomplishing for the next 10 years. And we just
Yeah.
wanted to jump on it and get it get done with it, because it's a resource that is scarce, even though it's renewable energy, not a scarce resource like gold or other forms not only energy, but other source that of money, of wealth, I guess we can say, because that was a big driver obviously for it as well. Everyone switched from being a real estate agent to being a solar agent, salesperson, and start selling solar. That was my impression. But I'm glad that there's still companies that have good intentions and want to contribute to the overall growth of the industry, because obviously it's needed. That's the direction we're taking anyway, despite what the changes are happening, or the current changes that are happening.
Absolutely.
I wanted to touch on your day-to-day operations and have a good understanding of how you structure days. But that the reason why I want to go there is that you've mentioned, I wanted to find out if I remember it correctly. You've mentioned during our first conversation that your commute to work is not a mile or 5 minutes. And then you have to wake up quite early to get to work. You are 100% work in office company,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
So tell us about that, and then let's talk about your day to day. How do you structure your days, and especially your thinking about your traveling as well, because that's a big part of what you do.
Well, I'm 54 miles away.
That's
And so I do come to work every day, and I generally get up in the late threes and I leave the house a little after 4 and I get to work by 5. Today, my first meeting was 5:30 in the morning.
wow.
And now I'm not super heroic. I actually usually leave in the early afternoon to mid afternoon. So it beats the commute on both ends. And then I go to the gym on the way home. And then when I get home, I actually sometimes, like today, I have a call with China at 7 p.m., but most of my nights are okay. But I lean towards early meetings because we have significant operations in Europe. Now, I don't come in early because of that. I come in early and it happens to align with that. So
Yeah.
last quarter, I think 62% of our revenue. Quarter before that, it was like 70% of our revenue came from Europe. So it actually works well that I do mornings. So I have a lot of calls in the morning and East Coast as well. And of course, I drive a Tesla. So I do drive an EV on that drive. And I can tell you my parents love it because on that long drive, I got nothing to do. So I call mom a couple times a week.
That's a good use of that commute. Hands on the wheels or hands on the phone type of Tesla driver.
I do hands on the wheel. I do not do auto drive. They gave it away recently. Gave it away. They gave a test drive period where they had it for free, and I did it for. I'm not comfortable with it. Control freak, whatever my psychology is. I'm just not into the auto drive, the self drive.
I'm asking because I noticed we were driving to LA the other day, and every second Tesla driver was not having their hands on their wheels at all, just really focusing on their phone, not even looking at the road. And this wasn't like single occurrence. It was literally every other Tesla car that I saw on the freeway, on an I-10 freeway towards around Los Angeles, which is obviously crowded. So there's a lot of cars going left, right, so many lanes here and there, and yet there's so many drivers without without even their eyes on the road, not even hands on the wheel, but on the steering wheel, but not even
Well,
looking at. That was insane.
so the challenges I mentioned about solar, multiply it by 20 for self driving cars. So solar is very safe. It
Mm,
just is. Yet any problem gets magnified. Waymos and self-driving vehicles are safe because a Waymo's never going to get a drinking and driving.
yeah,
It can't. It's a computer. They are actually safer. Uh-oh. Look at this timing. We have somebody's doing some yard work outside the office here. But the Waymos are safe, but the second there's an accident, everybody highlights it on the news and nobody cares about the statistics. Self-driving is safer than human driving.
I don't know. I can imagine the accuracy, and then as you mentioned, they don't get drunk, they're gonna get abused, anything else, and they don't get tired. So
Yep.
that's a big part of it. So we'll see. I mean, San Francisco is definitely. The last time I was in San Francisco, it felt like out of the movie, out of the future. How many self-driving autonomous cars everywhere? That's insane. Back to Tigo and your role in it. I wanted to talk about something that you've mentioned, the big turnaround that you've mentioned during our initial conversation, where you went from multiple high 8 figures all the way to 7 figures, pretty much high 7 figures, and then you make a turnaround. How did that happen? Tell us what you can tell us about that story.
So the company when I got here did a few million per quarter, and we had something like 80 people or 75 people or something like that. Can't remember the exact number. And then when I got here, we started a growth spurt. Alon, the CEO, had hired a few of us that were specifically designed to grow the company, hopefully to go public, which we did. So the quarter we went public, again, it was May of 2023. So in Q2 of 2023, we hit almost $70 million of revenue. Things were going strong. Now it turns out everyone was over inventoried. The industry went crazy, overbought. European companies in particular, the distributors were stuffing to the gills. There was double orders, all kinds of things like that, things that happen in an immature industry that's growing like crazy. And then so we had almost 70 million in Q2 of 23. By Q4 of 23, our revenue was less than 9. So it dropped way down. We had to do cuts of people. We had to tighten the belts. We weren't spending as much, cancel some shows, that kind of thing. Since then, the company has had 8 straight quarters of growth, and
Congrats.
it's steady growth. It's logical growth. It's each quarter a little bit more than the one before. And we passed profitability last summer. We were cash flow positive a couple quarters before that, but we were positive profit wise, EBITDA last summer. And the company's doing it slow and steady and methodically and working on quality and working on growing one installer at a time and working on relationships with installers. And just we've started an installer loyalty program. We've methodically grown the company slowly and steadily.
Interesting. How do you track it? I know that you're notorious for tracking ROI even on trade shows, which is insane. I would love to hear how that happened. That sounds very scientifically to
Yeah,
be able to track that. I didn't hear about any software that is able to do that. So would be
sure.
curious.
It's Microsoft Excel.
Oh, there you go. That's very OG.
Yes, that's me. You're very OG, if I may be so bold to call myself that. So I have four strategic pillars that I look at, and I try to tie it to something that's memorable: thunder, lightning, roots, and balance. So thunder is marketing has to be loud. So
Mm,
make noise. Press
fair enough.
releases. We do a press release every other week on average, and we do press releases. We track everything, our website. So we try to a lot of thought leadership out there. So these are all noise activities. In the marketing world, you call it branding. And then lightning is focused. So that's demand generation. We track leads meticulously, leads with installers. We have multiple methods of driving leads with installers. If we do pick up homeowners, we just give them to the installers. We don't charge or anything. Sometimes we get distributors as well. We add them into the mix, but our focus is on installers. So that's the lightning. And we have a series of different methods of doing that, primarily the web, trade shows, and webinars. Those are our three big ones to drive the leads. Roots is the installer loyalty. So we track retention. We actively look at turnover, why installers leave, systematically fix that. We have a program called Green Glove that we implemented, which is we've had 1,500 installs go through. That's We Help. It's kind of a play off on the White Glove service, but green for obvious reasons. But Green Glove, matter of fact,
There it is.
I have our green gloves. This is the Tigo green glove. So the green glove service that we do to improve the experience of the installers. And then the balance is trying to be more efficient with AI. So trying
Mm,
to be more efficient in how we service our installers and service our sales force. So those are the four tenets. And I have metrics. I have about 45 metrics spread across those four areas that I systematically drive improvements.
I love that. That belongs into a book on branding, marketing, and growth. Love that. David Ogilvy would be proud, and Professor Deming as well. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
yes. And Kotler, Philip Kotler, the godfather of marketing. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Great strategy. I love that. Well, I'm going to steal that. Just telling you straight up. I will steal the strategy right there. But I think that makes a lot of sense, especially for a company of your size. So that's great that you're able to do that. I wanted to ask you about something related to AI, since you mentioned AI. What are the AI use cases at your company? I'm really curious to hear that, since you're a publicly traded company, you're growing steadily. So I can imagine AI can be seen as something that is cool to have, but maybe not necessarily needed right away. How do you guys approach AI, and what are the use cases for it?
So there's four that we're doing actively right now, and then I've got a couple more after these are successful to add on. In the marketing space is number one is translations. Go back to
Mhm.
the 101 different countries. We actually actively translate into 17 different languages. That's impossible for a company our size to do very well. Trying to keep all of our documents translated all the time, it's very important that it's done efficiently and effectively, and we don't end up with pidgin English and fake half English, half Czech. I mean, it's stuff like that. So language, that's a more mechanical use of AI, I'll call it. The second thing is battle cards for our sales force. That's the second big one. So having constant update on information about competitors, taking the competitors, how do we deal with objections? And so we have a methodology where we utilize AI to generate, the term is battle cards, but how do you sell against X, whoever X might be? And that's the sales enablement function that I do. And then in the customer service space, we get a fair amount of tech support cases every quarter.
Mm.
So routing those tech support cases, again, we have the language challenge. So we've got to be able to deal with that. But routing them effectively and then giving all the information at the fingertips of the frontline tech support person. When you call 1-800-TIGO and they pick up the phone, if someone says, I have a problem where I have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, they quickly can pull up information to service that customer.
Mm.
So then we track first response time, time to closure, and net promoter score. The way to improve those is respond fast and accurate. And we do that with routing of cases and having AI agents help our frontline agents. We
That's
don't quite have AI answering customers yet.
oh, I was about to ask that.
We probably will, but users, particularly installers, solar installers are a snarky bunch. And if they believe they're getting handled by AI, that will hurt. We have to make sure it's done correctly. If a frontline tech support agent answers via AI, so he or she looks at the AI, answers the installer, and they do 10 in a row that are perfect, well, why not just do it automatically? But we'll do that slowly. We'll do that correctly.
I like that. Yes, it's probably wiser than just completely replacing that
Yep.
human in the loop element. I think that's very important. But I can imagine the efficiency improvement here alone from having those agents being able to identify common problems, technical issues that happen, and coming up with a solution that's already pretty good. And I had a guest on a podcast who specializes in developing those AI agents for a lot of industries, including medical industry and others. And I've seen some great examples of it. I think that's where we're heading anyway, where it's it's going to be very challenging to find out if you're talking to a human or human agent or AI agent. But I think it's smart to introduce it slowly rather than jumping straight into it and cutting all the human beings from that loop, AI loop, I guess you can say. Very interesting. What JD, if we zoom out a little bit off from the role and in general being part of this industry, being part of the company that is growing, being part of the company that's within the renewable energy space, what gives you the most fulfillment at what you do, particularly?
My fulfillment is the same as the day I started working, 1994, is
Born there.
helping my team. So my fulfillment that I get out of the workplace is seeing people that work for me and with me and around me succeed. And my long-term goal in life, I eventually want to be a college professor. My grandfather did that many years ago. A funny joke when he started. So my last name is Dillon, of course. When he started working as a college professor, the joke, they all called him Papa D because he was such a nice guy. And the joke was, you'll never get a D with Papa D because he was so friendly that he always gave people C and above just because he liked people. I'm not that friendly, but I do want to see others succeed. And I get enjoyment out of that. I get it with my kids. My kids are 21, 20, and 14, and watching them succeed in life. And I get similar things with the people around me. It's one of my favorite stories I've ever had in my career. I sent somebody who wanted to succeed. She was very introvert. She didn't get out of her shell very much. And I sent her to a conference, which was Women in Tech. And she was sitting next to somebody. She told me the story after the fact. And the person said, wow, that's great that your boss allows you to come all day to this conference. She must be great. And the person who worked for me proudly looked over and said, you mean he? And she was so proud of herself for going to this conference and that I gave her the opportunity. That was enjoyable to me. So that's what I get enjoyment out when the people around me do well, watching them succeed. And that's why I go to work every day at 4 a.m.
A true leader who puts into work. I love that. What are you planning on teaching at the colleges in your area or universities?
Actually, one of two things. Pricing is my favorite topic.
Really?
Yep. Pricing is my favorite topic. That's actually how I made my bones coming up. When I was at my last company, I was the VP of marketing and pricing.
Mm.
And pricing as a science is absolutely fascinating. It's my favorite one. I actually have a guy that used to work for me who's now a professor at University of San Diego. And matter of fact, it's coming up in 3 weeks, 4 weeks from today. Once a semester, I go into his class and I talk about the profession of marketing. It's one of my favorite things. He comes in, zooms me in, and they ask me questions about my career and what I do. To me, that's passing it along to another generation. That's fun.
I think I didn't know that must be such that is such a vast topic to study. But now that I think about it, it actually is because there's so many things that come into it.
I've done whole podcasts on pricing. I've talked at conferences on pricing. I used to be a member of the Professional Pricing Society. Talk about a crazy group of people. You ought to see them party.
So, are we going to keep the 0.99 ending and the pricing in the United States or worldwide? Actually, because I guess that's a common thing everywhere. Or are we going to drop that 1 cent difference?
I think. Do you know why we do it?
I guess of the perceived value of behind the deal that you have a better deal.
That's what people think. No, it's because back in the old days when you had the cash register, the person who ran the store, the general store, if you just gave them a bill, a $1 bill, they didn't have to go into the register. So you couldn't hear the ding.
Yes.
So they did it so they in back could hear that it would make them open the register. So it would reduce theft and then they could hear every transaction when they were stocking the shelves or whatever in the back for the person out front. How about
That's
that for weird, goofy, ridiculous knowledge that gets you nowhere in life? But I have it.
I love. Yeah, that's very interesting. I will definitely remember it for now. So I guess with that said, then we'll get rid of that cent because it'll be all digital
I
money
hope so.
transfer. Probably. So we'll get rid of those cents lying around and the house and me being fearful that my daughter will eat them. She finds one. That's what we have to deal
Having
with.
been through the kid stages myself, if your daughter does eat one, get ready for an enjoyable experience because you have to check to make sure it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to that. My two last questions I have for you, JD. Both since you love marketing, now I've learned something new about you that you love pricing and the philosophy behind pricing. Any book recommendations from you?
Any book recommendations?
Mhm.
All right. My most recent one that I loved is called Sales Pitch by April Dunford.
Sales pitch. Okay.
She talks about completely redoing how the pitch works. Most people lead with, "This is Tigo." We do too, by the way. I've been unable to get us to change. I'll get there eventually. But most people lead with, "We're Tigo. We've been in business since 2007. We have this we have this many employees. We're located in Los Gatos, California." Nobody cares. Leading with the problem of your customer and how you start with a dialogue about the problem. And it's well known, but she documents how a pitch should be redone.
Mm,
And I found it absolutely fantastic. That's one of my favorites. And there's another one called Lead with No.
that's a good one.
So the name of the guy, his name's Jim Camp Jr. And I knew his father, the late Jim Camp Sr. And Start with No was the pricing book, the
Mm,
negotiation book that I absolutely love. And this guy changed how I think about negotiations. His name's Jim Camp. And again, the father was senior and the son is junior. But and the son's still actively leading the business on negotiation, and it changes how you approach everything for
mm.
negotiations. So it's lead with no.
Lead with no. Yes, I'll look into those two books. They both ring bells. I think I might have encountered them here and there, but it's good to refresh my memory since the topics are very interesting the way you described it.
And the screen's a little bit limited, but I go through at any given time, I'm reading 3 books.
Three
I'm
books.
reading I'm reading a fiction, I'm reading a nonfiction related to work, like the 2 that I just mentioned. And then the third one, right now I'm reading a book that goes through every single president of the United States that just I find interesting. I get at any given time I'm reading 3 books, a fiction kind of thriller kind of one that's about human interest or interesting stuff like presidents, and then business.
Wow, 3 books this time. That sounds like me sometimes. I used to read multiple books at a time, but that's great. Have you read the book The Goal? think that would be a book that you would enjoy.
Of course.
Yeah.
I read The Goal many, many years ago. When I was leaving the military, The Goal was one of the books that was suggested by the recruiter who recruited junior military officers leaving the military. The Goal was read as a way to introduce you to business principles as a junior military officer. So The Goal is great. The idea of I guess this is improper to say, but putting the fat kid at the front of the line so that the production line moves steadily. I was the
Yeah.
fat kid myself, so I can say that, but that was monumental in how I approach production lines.
And then the second title that I think you would enjoy, it's a shorter read rather. It's titled Obvious Adams. That's the one from that I got recommended by, forgot his last name, but he is the head of, I guess, marketing at Ogilvy, at the Ogilvy industry company. So they
Obvious what?
Adam, like the name Adams. I think
Oh,
August. I guarantee you will like this one.
so I have a local bookstore in Danville, California that I always go to. I don't buy on Amazon.
I was in Danville a couple weeks ago.
So I am a strategic account for them because between my family and myself, I buy nonstop. I walk in, they all know my name, so I either order from them or I buy in the books, and they always get me by saying, "Oh, we just got a new one came out," and I always say yes, and so I spend so much money on books, but I will get Obvious Adams at the
Yes,
Rakestraw Books at Danville, California. Look at that. There's a plug.
there is a plug. Absolutely. And I have to visit now next time because we have family members there. So we'll visit more often. So I'll have to stop by there now as well. Maybe we'll get together and pick some books. Yeah. Have to be more strategic now with physical books because my daughter loves to rip up pages of them. So we have to now I have to protect my precious books because I love some. I didn't get too many first editions yet, obviously, but because it's not easy to get them. But I love to get those older books from 50s, 40s, 30s, 60s, and read through them, smell them. They have that distinctive smell for sure. So I always pick whenever we travel when we find a tiny bookstore. I always go there and pick one or two books as well. So I think we would have a shared hobby here as well. I'm guarantee you like that one. Fantastic. And I look forward to seeing JD Dillon as the author on one of those shelves one day. I think you have a lot to share. And you'd write some great books, regardless of which, if this would be a fiction, business related books, pricing, philosophy, I think either genre would be a great and enjoyable read. So I'm looking forward to that. JD, thank you so much for stopping by on this lovely Monday morning, soon for us. And I'm looking forward to seeing the outcome and promoting what you do, the company, and perhaps driving some leads to your webinars to get educated by JD Dillon himself. Thank you so much.
You bet, Matt. Cheers.